Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome to the Super Lunch Bros podcast. I am Brendan, and I'm alone. This is episode number 42. We are going to go over UFC Fight Night, Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. Decent. I mean, there were some decent fights. I think we've talked about this recently. I don't know if there was a lot of heavy implications everywhere else. The past couple cards, but this one definitely had some. Oh, coffee. Anyway, so in the main event, we had Alistair Overeem fighting for the 150th time. But legit, so he is 47-19. He's been fighting forever. We had Alexander Volkov, who is 33-8, getting the victory via TKO in the second round. Apparently, Overeem's nose was broken in the first round, so that can explain kind of how he was. He does that thing, he turtles. He throws up the high guard and he tries to roll with punches and try to bounce your shots off of his elbows and forearms. He does a really high shell, and he's done it for as long as I can remember. I think he even did this when he fought at middleweight in Pride. But when he gets backed up to the fence, obviously in Pride they had a ring and ropes, but when he gets backed up to the fence, he just shells up and waits for you to exhaust yourself, and then he doesn't even throw back a lot when he's out back there. He just kind of resets and gets away. It's worked enough times, obviously. Leading up to this fight, he was on a win streak again. And at the heavyweight division in the UFC, there's a lot of room to move around in the rankings, to move around for a title shot, because it only takes 2 wins to get a title shot. In the heavyweight division. And that's what he had. Yeah. So, because he had that controversial loss to Jairzinho Rozenstruik. So, going back to, we can go back to 2018, November 2018. Sergey Pavlovich, he knocked him out. He knocked out Alexei Oleinik. He loses to Jairzinho Rozenstruik in a very controversial knockout. It was with 4 seconds left on the clock in the 5th round. If you don't remember the fight, basically he dominated the entire fight. All 5 rounds were him. All 24 minutes and 50 seconds was all him. And he gets cracked, and it busts up open his lip really bad. He drops down. Jairzinho backs up, and then who was Dan Miragliotta steps in. And he steps in to call off the fight as Overeem is standing up. He's working his way against the fence. Obviously he's, doesn't have all of his wits about him, but he's doing all the things he's supposed to do. He's standing up. He's going to defend himself against the fence. There's only 4 seconds left in the fight. If he doesn't wave that fight off, does Jairzinho come in and finish the fight? I don't know, but we didn't get to see it. So controversial loss. I don't count it. If anything, we'll just call it nothing on his record. So he's coming off of 2 wins, bullshit loss. Then he knocks out Walt Harris. Remember, he got cracked in that first round. Very emotional. The emotional lead up to that fight with Walt Harris, recently losing his stepdaughter, and everybody was kind of rooting for Walt Harris, and I think even Alistair Overeem was rooting for Walt Harris, and he just gassed out in the first round. Overeem's experience took over, and he ends up getting the TKO in the second. He just knocked out Augustus Sakai last year in September. And then we get Alexander Volkov. So if he beats Alexander Volkov, I think he gets another title shot. But because Volkov won, I don't know if Volkov's getting a title shot after that. With the way the heavyweight division is right now, you've got, obviously Stipe is still the champ. Yeah, we all know that. But, and he's going to fight Francis. That's going to happen. I mean, if Curtis Blades at 2, Jairzinho at 3, Derek Lewis at 4, Derek Lewis is fighting Curtis Blades. That fight was already supposed to happen, and it didn't. So that's coming up. You got Jairzinho at 3, like I said. Alistair Overeem was at 5. Volkov's at 6. And I think Rozenstruik's fighting Cyril Gane, who's ranked 7. So they're locked up. Alexander Volkov doesn't have anybody above him who's free except for Francis Ngannou. And that fight's just not happening. So, he could fight any of the other guys who rank below him, but that doesn't make sense for him right now. And I guess he could wait for after the next couple of weeks, after the Rosenstruck fight, and maybe take on the winner of Rosenstruck versus Gane. And then the winner of that can get a title shot if the title picture shakes out in a way that makes sense. Because if Francis beats Stipe in an other than convincing way, right? Like if somehow he wins a decision, right? A less than classic Francis performance, which is knock you out in the first 10 seconds of the fight, right? So if he doesn't get that done, and Francis still gets the win, well, we haven't gone as the champ, but Stipe's, I would normally say Stipe is going to get a rematch, but knowing that the adversarial relationship that he has with the UFC, we've talked about this before, like, I don't understand why they haven't promoted Stipe as much as they have. Like, obviously he had the Modelo deal, and he still does, he's a fireman. He's a fireman. He has a regular job. And I know that's not necessarily a full-time job in the sense that we all think of them, like where you go in, clock out every single day. But he has a real, a normal job like a normal person, and he does it. Like, he actually still does that job while he's training for fights. And he's a down-to-earth dude who doesn't talk a lot of crap, and he's the baddest man on the planet. Like, uncontroversially. He's, for my money, the best UFC heavyweight of all time. Like, you can't say DC is. He beat DC twice. Like, he beat DC. Right? Like, you can't, who are you going to say? Like, the only one who has an argument, maybe, is Cain Velasquez. But Stipe Miocic has the most title defenses. His record is fantastic. So anyway, that's an aside I don't want to get into. Basically, we're looking at where the heavyweight division could be locked up for another 9 months. And Volkov's coming off of, let's see, the win. So he did, remember he lost to Curtis Blades because Curtis Blades is an amazing wrestler and just did what he does, right? And I love Curtis. We all know that. He beat Greg Hardy. He got knocked out by Derek Lewis in the last 10 seconds of that fight. Is so stupid. Derek Lewis should not have won that fight. So other than the Derek Lewis one, and to be fair to Volkov, he was coming on in the later rounds against Curtis Blades. He just couldn't stay on his feet. So if he can stay on his feet against a heavy wrestler, and he can still do, without compromising his striking ability, right? Like, he could beat Stipe. MMA math doesn't always work, but given that skill set, he could beat Stipe Miocic. So getting him to the title shot, it seems to be the more difficult task right now because of the way that the heavyweight division has shaken out. I still think Curtis Blades deserves a title shot. I think Stipe is a nightmare matchup for Curtis. I love Curtis. I love him a lot. He's one of my favorite heavyweights, one of my favorite fighters. It's a really rough fight for him. So, regardless of how that goes, he's got to get through Derek Lewis, and Derek Lewis can put your lights out with a freaking jab. So we'll see how that shakes out, how everything turns out in the division. But great win for Volkov. Alistair, he might be done. I don't want to say that definitively because he did get his nose broken in the first round. And on top of that, he has just, I've spoken to this fact many times already. He has just shown this incredible ability to extend his fighting career. And I think if you're a heavyweight in MMA and you want to have the longest, most, I would say, profitable as well, because that's important, making money, but successful career, if you can emulate what Alistair Overeem did, not just necessarily being the marauder for your entire career, picking up skills, always looking for new training partners, finding new training camps, learning when your chin is gone. And you can say what you want about his fight style right now, he basically turns and runs. He did that to Stipe. It's that famous meme that goes around with him, like, my work week is Stipe, and then Alistair Overeem is me. Yeah. Like, so you can meme him all you want, and you can talk about his fighting style not being as interesting anymore or whatever you want, but the man has been very successful. He's beating the best of the best, and he's competitive with the best of the best. Like, don't forget, he cracked Stipe with a punch, and he, on any other given night, maybe that fight ends right there. And we have him as a champion for at least a couple months. He might lose to someone else, but in another world, in another night, Alistair Overeem could be our champ. So this guy has done an incredible job maintaining his peak performance, despite, and we all know, yes, Overeem was on the juice, blah blah blah. That doesn't matter. In fact, I would consider his success post USADA and drug testing a testament to his ability to learn and become a more well-rounded mixed martial artist and an intelligent fighter than any other accomplishment that he could do or that he's had. Because taking something from a person like hormones that they've been using, like taking testosterone from a fighter who's used them for an extended period of time, so much so that they've gone up an entire weight class, right? He almost weighed out of the weight class, right? He's cutting down to 265. When you take a fighter like that, and whose body just completely changes, look at all the other guys, the Vitor Belforts, right? All these guys whose physiques completely changed post USADA. Tell me how their careers are going. Tell me how everything for them has gone post drug testing. And look at Alistair Overeem, how successful he's been this entire time. Yes, he trades wins and losses, but he's always fighting the best. The dude's never dropped out of the top 5. Maybe, I don't know. Now that I think about it, he might be outside the top 5. Shouldn't have said that. Oh, he's number 5 right now. Well, he's going to be dropped out of the top 5. Regardless, I don't think he's been outside of the top 10 in the past, 6 years. This guy has just been incredible. So, do I think this was his last fight? If I had to put money on it, I'd say no. Do I think that this was his last shot on his way to a UFC title? Yeah, my money would go on yes. As much as, I've been proven wrong by him multiple times. I thought he was done a long time ago, and he's just kept going. Every time he gets a bad knockout, which he's had plenty, I just think we're not just talking about MMA here, guys. He's been knocked out in kickboxing 20-something times. I don't know. It was a lot. Right? He has been knocked out so many times. His chin is completely gone. And at heavyweight, that's a death sentence. Your career should instantly be over. Yet he's managed to maintain performance at the highest level. It's just incredible. So, do I think he's going to ever challenge for a title again in the UFC? No. Would I be surprised if he did? Absolutely not. The way the UFC heavyweight division has shaken out the past, God, ever since Verdum tapped out Kane, honestly. Maybe even before that when he knocked out Mark Hunt. Ever since then, it's just been crazy. It's just complete random. Everybody just fights everybody. We got new people coming in, getting knocked out. Surprise crap, boring fights. I know I'm sounding like I'm just describing the gambit here, but we're talking about top 5 opponents facing each other, and it describes everything I just said, or can be described by everything I just said in the past 6-7 years. So, congrats to Alexander Volkov. Great fight. A fantastic performance. He looked so good. Very crisp striking. It was interesting and kind of cool to see him not have to worry about takedowns. Getting to see him with his fulfilling his potential, I guess, as a striker in the heavyweight division. I still don't think he has the, world-altering power that some other heavyweights might, but he's a heavyweight. You know, he weighs 250 pounds, and he throws a straight punch at you. It's got enough mass where it can knock you out. So, and he's a more of a volume guy. So if he has enough power to knock you out, and he has volume, I mean, I still think when they brought him in, I thought he was going to challenge for a title, and I still think he's going to. He's so good. You know, he was the Bellator champ. I think he went and fought in PFL. No, I don't remember. But he was the Bellator champ for a while. This guy's the real deal. And, you know, he's had one real loss in the UFC, I'll say. Obviously, the loss to Derek Lewis is a real loss, but he won that entire fight, you know, and he did something really stupid in the last 10 seconds. Like, he should have just ran around the cage, and he would have won that fight. But, you know, that's not his style, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, congrats to Volkov. Hopefully he gets a title shot this year. Might not happen, though. All right, the co-main event. This one was exciting and also very, very sad and scary. So Corey Sandhagen fought Frankie Edgar at bantamweight. So Frankie Edgar cutting down. Frankie looked physically great. You know, and I'm sure Frankie could have gone the distance, no problem. Had his trademark wrestle boxing style, the knee taps, all that stuff. But 28 seconds into the first round, Corey Sandhagen throws a flying knee and knocks Frankie out cold. Like, he went stiff as a board standing up and fell over and was non-responsive for a very long time. It was scary to see that from Frankie Edgar. Obviously, Frankie's up there in years. He's been knocked out before. You know, he had these dogs. Dogs. Anyway, Frank Edgar had those wars with Gray Maynard, you know, where he's getting cracked over and over again. He's taking a lot of damage. He got knocked out clean by oh my goodness. Why can I not remember his name now? He just fought Ortega. Got knocked out clean by Ortega. So he's been knocked out like a true. He's been truly knocked out before. You know, his chin's not what it used to be. Obviously, that all being said, what a crazy knee from Sandhagen. Also, on a side note, really cool. Corey was like a little teary-eyed afterwards because he didn't feel good about how the fight ended. Like, they were showing it back to him, and DC was like, all right, let's take a look at your work. And Corey was like, yeah, that's great and all, but that's Frankie Edgar. I don't want to watch this anymore. He's like, I don't want to see Frankie going out like that. And DC is like, yeah. And, you know, he's being a broadcaster, and he's trying not to dwell on the negative here. And, you know, the public is watching this. This is ESPN here. We don't want to scare everybody. So he's not trying to dwell on, like, brain damage and stuff. So he didn't want to keep harping on that. He was just like, oh, no, you know, tonight's about you, Corey, so let's, you know, congratulations. Understandable. I think, you know, if they take a step back, they kind of all agree with Corey there. That was a rough knockout. You don't really like to see that, or regardless of how much you like the sport, you know, especially when it's Frankie Edgar. I mean, if that person's a douche, you know, if someone who's been, like, acting like a total asshole gets knocked out, like, you're going to tell me that 60 to 80% of the people who like MMA watched Colby Covington get knocked out? You tell me they wouldn't be excited? If that, like, look what happened when, oh, good grief, Ben Askren got knocked out. Like, everybody loved that. When Jorge Masvidal, I'll throw the exact same, like, well, not the exact same, but a similar knee. Look how excited everybody was about that. Like, ha ha ha, that's what you get for talking shit. This is Frankie Edgar we're talking about here. He doesn't talk crap. So it's a rough one. Sandhagen's hard to deny, man. I mean, he had the setback. He had the setback against Aljamain Sterling. You know, but, you know, with that spinning heel kick knockout of Marlon Moraes, and now the knee to Frankie Edgar knocking him out. Yes, dude, Frankie Edgar is ranked number 4. Holy moly. Yeah, I mean, Sandhagen's ranked number 2. Like, I don't see how he doesn't get a title shot after this. Then you got Cody Garbrandt at number 3 for reasons. Whatever. We all, like, that's so stupid. Anyway, Sandhagen looks great. You know, if he's still adding wrinkles to his game, that's a scary prospect. And he said afterwards, he's like, I don't care who wins, Peter Yan or Aljamain Sterling, but I'm going to knock both. I can knock both of them out. And, you know, Peter Yan's talking about fighting TJ Dillashaw when he comes back. As much as I love TJ, do I think he deserves an immediate title shot coming off of a PED suspension? Absolutely not. Sandhagen was kind of asking for that fight when TJ came back. I think that would be a good fight still. Yeah, Jose Aldo. Yeah, Sandhagen just needs to fight for a title. You know, I wouldn't mind him running it back with Sterling. Even right as Sterling, I think Sterling's going to beat Peter Yan. So if he beats Yan, just run it right there. Just make them fight for the title. I know it was only like last year or whatever, but I don't care. All right, so here's one that's fun. We had Clay Guida. Yes, that Clay Guida, the Carpenter here, right? 36-17. Also been fighting forever, right? You know, coming from the WEC, you know, Team Alpha Male. He's been fighting for so long. So he fought Michael Johnson, who was supposed to fight for a title at one point at lightweight. Cut down, like, obviously he lost. You know, I would say almost knocked out Justin Gaethje. But, you know, he ends up getting knocked out by Justin Gaethje. The dude, like Michael Johnson knocked out Dustin Poirier. Like, I don't know what to make of him. You know, like, I don't understand how he can't put it together and get some consistent wins here. It's just, it's weird. But anyway, Clay Guida gets a 3-round decision. All three judges gave it to Guida, 30-27. I thought Johnson might have won the last round there. At least one of those rounds could have went to Michael Johnson. So, a little bit weird, but, you know, good for Clay. He's just signed a new 4-fight contract, and he's trying to keep fighting. Yeah, good for him, man. You know, normally you don't see these guys getting up there in age, hanging around in these lighter weight classes, but Guida's a monster. He still has a chin. You know, I don't think he's the fighter he once was, but his cardio is fantastic. He's still got the manic energy and the manic fight style. Still Clay Guida. So we'll see. Yeah, bring that down a bit there. We'll see what they do with him. He asked for, instead of fighting, you know, vets or people with a lot of fights and people of his ilk, he's asking for fights against up-and-comers. So maybe he's looking to make another run. At lightweight, I don't see that happening. But crazier crap has happened. Matt Serra won the title. Okay, so we had, I heard it pronounced both ways, Alexandre and Alexander. I'm going to go with Alexandre Pantoja versus Manel Cape. This one was weird. I kept herding. Good grief. I tried to say heard. So during the fight, you hear the announcers talking about Cape, how he, or Cap? I think it's Cap. How he was fast and he was seeing everything, but he just needed to put things together and stop backing up and keep throwing punches. But then at the end of every round, they're like, oh, I don't know, that one was pretty close. It wasn't. It wasn't close. He won, in my opinion, Manel won the 3rd round, and Pantoja won the first 2. I don't think it was close. Like, Pantoja landed a ton of leg kicks in the first round, and, there was that little thing where Manel threw a spinning kick and fell on the ground, so Pantoja had top control on him for a little bit. Don't see how he loses that round. Second round, more of the same. Third round, Manel kind of started to put it together a little bit, moving forward more, putting it on him. You could give it either way, but I gave it to Manel. So I had it 29-28. And then Manel afterwards doesn't want to shake his hand. Like, I think they reconciled a little bit, but he was like very upset about the decision. No, he didn't get. He shouldn't. You go back and watch what you did. You didn't do enough to win. You clearly have the skills to do so. You just got to apply them a little bit differently next time he comes out. That's all. He fought a great fight. It wasn't bad. He didn't go out there and get blown out. He wasn't clearly he wasn't miles behind or miles away from being successful. He's there. He's in the conversation. He just needs to put it all together. That was flyweight. All right. That was a decent fight. Not really back and forth or anything, but the fight beforehand on the other was crazy. So Beneil Dariush is famous for just being absolutely nuts. Just getting himself in brawls constantly. Like, this guy's a jiu-jitsu dude. Like, his thing is grappling, and jiu-jitsu especially. He's very good. But he developed a left high kick and a left kick that is very powerful, and he swings for the fences. And he just gets caught in these brawls, and he loves to do it. He had a fight of the night, a fight of the year contender. I believe it was last year. And I wouldn't consider this a fight of the year type of fight, but it was interesting against Carlos Ferreira. So more importantly, so Beneil Dariush looks great. Okay, I have a couple things to say about this one because it pertains to the rankings as well. So this was lightweight. So Ferreira looked good. He was able to defend himself pretty well on the ground, so that's awesome. And I gave him the second round, I believe. But Beneil, obviously I gave him 2 rounds. One of the judges gave Ferreira 2 rounds. I don't understand that at all. Like, it was not that close. Right? Dariush did more than enough. Oh, you know what? Yeah, the first 2 rounds I think were Dariush. Because the first one was striking and the second one was takedowns. I might have had that reversed. Damn it. Anyway, so going to the rankings, shall we? Beneil Dariush is currently ranked at lightweight 13. Beneil Dariush is on a 6-fight win streak. Sound familiar? So everybody who has been bitching about Oliveira being overlooked because he's won a bunch of fights, can we stop that shit now, please? I'm not saying like he doesn't deserve a title shot. I've been over this enough. But can we stop acting like wins mean everything instead of caliber of opposition? Because I'll tell you what. The people that Dariush has been beating, on average, higher caliber than Oliveira. Up until recently. Obviously, not of recent. Okay. But Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Frank Camacho, So it was decision, triangle, rear naked choke, Drakkar Klose, knockout, Scott Holtzman, knockout, and Ferreira, the decision. 6 wins in a row. I mean, he got knocked out by Alexander Hernandez when he was the next thing. I think that was when Hernandez was still undefeated. He had a draw against Dunham. He was knocked out by Edson Barbosa, who had, that's by a flying knee. That was crazy. But the guy's only lost to, the best at the time in the division. Edson Barbosa, Alexander Hernandez was, at the time, very hot. He's lost to Michael Chiesa. Okay. And then Ramsey Nijem, like way back when, back in 2014. Yeah, the dude's, he beat Michael Johnson, James Vick, Rashid Magomedov, Diego Moises, and all those other people. He's asking for a title shot, and he's saying like, oh, no matter who you put in front of me, I don't care if they're the champ, or like I'm just gonna go out there and win. That's the mindset that I'm in right now. He has the skill set to beat a lot of people. I think his cardio might be a little bit weak for 5 rounds. So I'd like to see him in a main event. But this whole thing where like Charles Oliveira deserves the title shot, and like how can people overlook him? I don't hear anybody saying any of that crap about Beneil Dariush. Like, where's the love for him? Where's everybody like clamoring like, oh, I can't believe he's being overlooked, this and that. You want to talk about his wins? All right, so let's go back to when Oliveira started his win streak. Clay Guida, right? Christos Giagos. Who? Good question. Jim Miller. Really? David Tamer. Again, really? Nick Lentz. Okay. Jared Gordon. Who? I'm not saying these guys are nobodies. I'm just saying the caliber of opponent that he's been facing to put together this 8-fight win streak, it's 6 fighters who are either A, way past their prime, or B, not top-tier opponents. And you're going to tell me that he deserves a title shot over everyone else who's been fighting nothing but top 5 opponents for the past 6 years. Get the fuck out of here. Stop. Or at least be consistent in your message. Tell me that Beneil Dariush deserves a title shot. Give me 6 articles and a bunch of random-ass people on Twitter telling me that Beneil Dariush deserves it. I want to hear the announcers talk about it. Like, oh, I can't believe this guy doesn't get a title shot. He's got 6 fights in a row. Well, before the last 2 fights, Oliveira had 6. That's how math works. His last 2 fights, Kevin Lee and Tony Ferguson. Arguably the best wins of his career. Maybe Will Brooks back in the day. Right? Those are the most impressive wins, and they just happened. Okay? They were clamoring for this guy to get a title shot. Like, I can't believe I haven't been offered a title. I got 6 fights in a row, because you're fighting people that aren't of the highest caliber. They're not people who are in contention of title shots. Therefore, you're not fighting title contenders. You are not a title contender. You can't just beat out people outside the top 15 constantly and then be like, I deserve a title shot because I have 10 wins in a row. It's like, dude, you've been fighting randoms who this is their first fight in the UFC or their last fight in the UFC. Stop. You're going to tell, like, you do not deserve a title shot for that. Like, and arguably beating Kevin Lee isn't that impressive either. Okay? Like, I don't think he's all that everybody cracks him up to be. Beating Tony Ferguson, that's a real win. That's great. I would never take that away from Oliveira. Great win. Also, getting a win in the UFC is impressive. Putting 6 together in the hardest division is impressive. But it is the hardest division for a reason. Because in the top 10, we're talking about guys who on any given night deserve a title shot for beating someone else. But you can't face people outside the top 10 and expect that to happen. Beneil Dariush, 6 wins in a row. Where's his title shot? How come everybody's overlooking him? Maybe it's because he's not fighting the highest caliber of opponent right now. I believe the UFC has been at least consistent in that, right? Because Oliveira isn't outwardly popular with people outside of MMA. So they're not giving him a title shot based off of popularity. Okay? His body of work is all they can go off of. And his body of work has not been enough to justify a title shot yet. Right after beating before beating Tony Ferguson, by the way. After beating Tony Ferguson, that's enough for me. I would give him a title shot. Like I said a couple weeks ago, though, I don't know if that's how it's going to shake out, just because of everything that is working, in the top 5 in the UFC, in the lightweight division right now, with McGregor, Poirier, Ferguson, everybody having history, RDA, and Justin Gaethje, right? And Khabib if he comes back. He's not coming back. So with all that being said, Beneil Dariush is demonstrating that the UFC is pretty consistent with how they do things, right? He's not outwardly popular with people outside of MMA. He has not put together a body of work that demonstrates that he deserves a title shot for them. Those are the two things. If you're very popular, they're going to give you more opportunities. You're probably still going to have to fight somebody unless you're like crazy famous, right? If a movie star somehow made their way into the UFC and had enough skills to compete with the top 10 in the UFC, this is a ridiculous example, but it demonstrates my point. If I don't know, name someone famous, pick your own, I don't care, I'm not naming a person, comes into the UFC and they can clearly compete with the top 10, maybe they only need one win and then they get a title shot. Or here's a better example. Someone who's a champion in another organization, right, like Michael Chandler, has put together a body of work that shows that shows his caliber as a fighter. Well, now when he comes to the UFC, this is not his first fight. This is not his first professional fight. This isn't his first fight in a big organization. Like, he was a title holder for a very long time. He fought the best in the world for a very long time. He beat the former UFC lightweight champion before he became the lightweight champion of the UFC. And who also was the former Bellator lightweight champion in Eddie Alvarez, right? We're talking about like a legit champ here coming to the UFC and knocking out a top tier opponent in his first fight. Pretty convincingly, I might add. Now, does he deserve it over someone who's, I guess you could say, paid their dues in the UFC? Maybe. Because he has put together a resume of knocking out killers or beating the best of the best, or everybody who they put in front of, the best that they could put in front of him, given the organization. And Oliveira has not done that, right? Dariush has not done that yet. I wouldn't be mad if Dariush fought Oliveira. I think that'd be a fun fight. That's not going to happen. But, like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's in this, especially in the lightweight division, where the talent pool is so deep. You cannot be fighting people outside of the top 15, outside the top 10 consistently, and expecting your name to get pulled out of the hat when they're looking for the next title contender. All right. And to start the card, we had some light heavyweights. Mike Rodriguez versus Danilo Marquez. Ended up getting a rear naked choke at the end of the second round. Not much to glean from that fight. It is what it is. We have Devontae Smith coming back after a gruesome, horrible Achilles tear. It's one of the worst injuries in sports, if not the worst injury. It's worse than I think it's statistically. I think it's worse than breaking a leg or an arm, like breaking a bone, because the strength never fully comes back. It's like a death sentence to everybody. Like the NBA, like if you tear your Achilles, I think there's only been one person who technically came back from an Achilles tear, and that was Kobe Bryant. And even he wasn't the same afterwards. So, he went from like the best in the NBA or, MVP caliber every year to like just an awesome player who could still shoot really well. So, yeah, he beat Justin James because James' eye blew up real bad and couldn't see out of it, so it was a doctor stoppage. Technically a TKO. He was winning the fight. It's not like he was losing it. It was a bullshit stoppage. It is what it is. So we had Carol, women's bantamweight. We had Carol Rosa versus Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards coming in as a highly touted prospect, getting her win, first win in the UFC like 3 weeks ago. Carol Rosa, just, she hits hard, like really hard. At bantamweight, that's excellent to see. She's very strong. Again, not a lot to pick up from these fights, but I'm excited to see her fight some more in the future. I think it'd be pretty cool. Molly McCann versus Lara Procopio. Anyway, grappling heavy fight, not the most exciting. Not a lot of action, not a lot of looking for finishes. Lara got the win. She's 7-1. Cool. Featherweight. He had Choi Song-woo versus Youssef Zalal. Youssef just didn't pull the trigger enough. He was just getting outstruck, and then like during the grappling exchanges, like he just couldn't take control of the fight. It's featherweight. It's the first time I've really like noticed these guys, so not a lot from there. Martin Day versus Timur Valiev. That was a whatever fight. And went to the decision. Valiev ended up getting the win, and then Odie Osborne knocking out Jerome Rivera with a really good right hand, I believe. 26 seconds into the first round. Pretty cool knockout. Great way to start out the night. But yeah, anyway, okay. That is all for that fight night. And we'll just go over the card that's coming up this Saturday. And we'll get out of here. Oh, by the way, everybody who's listening and made it this far, it's just me talking, so I don't know how you made it this far. So thank you, Hassam. I really appreciate you listening all the time. And thank you, Cody. Welcome. You are now part of the Super Lunch Bros. All right. And this weekend... oh, man, there's lots of good fights on here. Let's just cover the main event right now. Might do an additional breakdown during the week. We got Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. So Usman, obviously the champ. He's coming off of his win against Colby Covington. Oh, no, not Colby Covington. Jorge Masvidal, in which Masvidal should never have been given that title shot. But, again, outwardly popular. I already talked about it. So, do I think Gilbert Burns has what it takes to beat Kamaru Usman? Absolutely, I do. I really do. Right now, looking at their past fights, how things have been going for each fighter. Oh, man, this is hard, though, because Kamaru started working with Trevor Whitman. And the way he game plans, man. Like, it's him and City Kickboxing have some of the best game plans. Like, I think Jackson Winklejohn has great game plans, but I think John Jones is the biggest reason why they were as successful as they were with him. I don't think that was all the camp. Let's just look at abilities here, right? Okay, so Kamaru Usman, what are his strongest attributes? Wrestling and cardio. Those are his strongest attributes. Now, he has become a much better striker. But we saw versus Masvidal, he's not elite, so don't give me that. I don't want to hear it. He got tuned up on the feet. Like, there's that great, like, almost like kung fu sequence where he's just, like, swinging away at Masvidal on the fence, and Masvidal's like, yep. Just like dodging every single one of them. Usman didn't land a single one, and then he just like dives under, like, okay, takedown time. Nothing wrong with that. You know, that's his key. That's his path to victory. We've been over this many times. That's okay. So we know good cardio, right? Great cardio. Fantastic wrestling, and he has that suffocating wrestling style. You know, not the pinning wrestling style that is very good for actual collegiate and Olympic wrestling, but the exhaustion style wrestling it's called teching a guy, basically taking him down over and over and over again so many times that you get a technical, I think it's a technical pin. Basically, you're up by so many points. You know, it's like the mercy rule in baseball when you're a kid. You know, if the one team's up by 10 points, they're like, all right, let's just call it. It's kind of like that. Like, I think, you get to 15 and they just call it. So he has that style. So he just keeps going after you and putting you on the ground, touching you up on the feet a little bit, and then going and taking you on the ground. And then, like, it's not quite Khabib-esque, okay? Khabib takes you down, holds you down there, and he looks to finish the fight there. You say what you want about Khabib, but he doesn't relax on the ground. I'm not saying Usman does either. He beats you up. He beats you up on the ground, right? He does ground and pound, but he's okay taking you back down over and over again. That's his style. Whereas Khabib holds you down like, you are not getting away from me. I will do everything in my power to tie up those legs and keep that Windsor so you're not going, or the Wizard so you're not going anywhere. All of that being said, what are Gilbert Burns' strengths? World-class jiu-jitsu. World-class jiu-jitsu. Talking about one of the best jiu-jitsu artists at welterweight. World-class. Good cardio. We've never really seen him gas out completely. Not since he's moved up. I haven't seen him gas out. Incredible strength. Okay, Usman is also very strong. And a lot of power in the hands now. Okay, and decent wrestling. So, if you just had to look at it, tool for tool, who has more paths to victory and who has more tools in their toolbox? Gilbert Burns. That obviously doesn't just mean you win just because of that, because if you're a tool, like, I can have an entire toolbox, but if a guy has a bazooka, like, that's his tool, his only tool, he wins. That's just how that shit works. So life ain't fair. But Gilbert Burns, I think he can get this done. My money, if I had to bet on this one, I would bet my money on Burns winning. I haven't seen anything from Usman that shows me that he can stop what Burns does, right? We saw Usman get touched up on the feet by Kobe. We saw somebody with cardio who could keep up with Usman. So that might be where he gets beat, though. That might be where Burns gets beat, is the cardio. So that notwithstanding, right? Like, I don't know about 25 minutes of that, so we'll see. Anyway, we've seen someone with good cardio touch Usman up on the feet, but Kobe doesn't have a lot of power, right? We've seen Tyron Woodley not do shit, so I don't want to hear it. We've seen Masvidal, who can strike and has power, touch Usman up on the feet. We saw Maia shut Usman down. Yeah, and remember that shoulder crank that they were in, like that really awkward position that ref broke up for some bullshit reason. Okay, and that's the only position, that only time that Maia gets that position. But we've seen someone who's excellent at jiu-jitsu kind of be able to do what they want to do, but Usman's an excellent wrestler, so he was able to hold it off. So now what happens when we get a guy who can strike with you, can hit with power, can keep up with you, and also has those jiu-jitsu skills? Well, that's what we have in Gilbert Burns. And that is the perfect recipe to beat someone like Kamaru Usman. Do I think he gets it done? Yes. Do I think he wins every single time? Absolutely not. Right? Usman's a grinder, man. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say that he's not a great fighter. He is. I don't like his bullshit fake persona, his fake swagger. I can't stand that stuff. He caught he came in near the tail end of the McGregor era, and he's talking shit. I came in sitting at about 30%. Like, I don't need to hear that stuff, right? Like, that's fake as crap. I've heard him talk in extended periods, and he has like long periods where he's like a very nice person, and he talks, nice about people, and he seems like a wholesome individual. I'd rather see that. That's fine. I don't care. Be the next GSP. Be a super polite French-Canadian dude. Okay, maybe don't be French-Canadian. But anyway, be a nice, polite guy. And that's what, like, I wouldn't mind that. I just don't like his fake swagger bullcrap. Wearing the stupid suits and putting the glasses on and acting like, oh, I'm too cool for that. And, oh, man, bring that same energy. Oh, like it's all fake. I can't stand it. It's not natural for him. It doesn't seem real. Please stop. When Masvidal does stuff, it's because he is that guy. He will punch you at the bar for looking at him weird. Why? Because that's how he grew up. Do I think that's right or right? Not necessarily. I don't care about that, though. Like, Do I like that attitude? Absolutely not. I wouldn't want to hang out with Masvidal. I couldn't crack a joke. Dude would fucking strangle me for like making a weird remark or comment. Like, he's not somebody I want to hang out with. That being said, I'm not mad about it because that's who he is. That's who he is. Usman is not that guy. Stop doing that shit. It's so fake. He's a great fighter, though, and that's what makes it hard. Like, you know, I don't always root for somebody every time I watch a fight. Sometimes I'm just interested, and then during the fight, as it goes on, I'll, you know, kind of find myself leaning into one direction. But when you're a total, like, Colby, I don't root for Colby Covington because he's fake as crap. And when him and Usman fought, honestly, if they both could lose, I would rather have had that. Like, I know everybody was wanting, like, Colby Covington to get knocked out because of all the crap that he says, right? And then, like, Usman's like, this one's for all the minorities and all this and that. Like, motherfucker, like, you want to win, that's on you. You want to represent them, that's great. I don't think you're a good representative because you're also fake as shit. Stop. You're not a genuine person when you're talking to everybody. Please stop. Jeez. Yeah. So, I'm probably going to be rooting for Burns because I think his fighting style is more interesting. I think he has a better skill set. And I'd like to see, I think he has more interesting matchups. And I would like to see Usman get kicked back down so he has to fight some of these other guys that he's not necessarily been ducking. I don't have any inside information. But some of the other people he hasn't had to fight yet. Like Wonderboy Thompson. Please put that fight together. God dang. Like, there are so many fights that I want to see him do. Like, him versus Michael Chiesa would be good. Tyron Woodley, we've seen that. Damian Maia, we've seen that. Vicente Luque, he'd probably just take him down the entire time. That's fine. Neil Magny might just take him down every time. Right? Because his wrestling's so good. Like, if your weakness is wrestling, you're not going to do very well in the top 5. It's just not how it's going to work. Okay? But seeing him fight other interesting matchups, like Leon Edwards, please, can we get Leon Edwards an opponent? God. You know, Khamzat Chimaev, let's see him get up there after, like, he actually gets a real win. So, yeah, I'll probably be rooting for Burns. Not because I like Burns better than Usman. It's just because, like, I just don't like Usman's fake crap, and I think the division's going to be better without Usman as the champion. He also doesn't fight that much. You know, when is the last time Usman fought? Before I speak out of turn here. Because as a champion, I think it's appropriate to fight twice a year. Right? But as a champion, because he's had the surgeries and the recovery time, you know, so he did. So he won against Tyron Woodley in March and then waited the entire year in December to fight Colby Covington. Fine. And then he fought Jorge Masvidal in July. 6 months between fights. Maybe. I'll give him that. But then he hasn't fought. That's, you know, 6 more months. 7, 8 months now that he hasn't fought. I don't want a champion who's only fighting once a year. Maybe last year was an off year because it was 2020 or whatever crap. But you should be fighting, at least once every like 5 to 6 months. So before that, maybe I'm being too hard on him. But yeah, that's coming up this weekend. I'd probably give it 60-40 Burns. I'd lean in that way. Like I said, mainly it's a skill set that I think that he has. It's the recipe to beat Usman. I think Kobe has the recipe to also beat Usman. You know, if they fight 10 times, I think Usman probably wins 7 of them. So, Kobe on a given night could be the 30% time. But yeah, that's coming up. We have some other good fights on this card. Hopefully we'll talk again later this week and get somebody else on here so it's not just me rambling along by myself. Okay, anyway, all right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this, making it all the way through again. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube and you'd like to just listen to this, the audio version, we're on Spotify, We're also, or you can go through Podbean, wherever else you get your podcasts, and vice versa. If you're just listening to this and you'd like to see my face, I wouldn't. We're up on YouTube, Super Lunch Bros. Comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff. If you like what we're doing, awesome. If you don't like what we're doing, also cool. Just tell me. Like, we can change things up. I could change the background. I could paint my house a different color. No, I couldn't. That's not going to happen. Video suggestions, idea suggestions, all that stuff. Like things that we do here. Do you want shorter video format? Do you want me to break these up into smaller chunks? I could do that as well. It's a little more time intensive, but if you guys want that and you're going to watch more of them and you're going to share it more, just let me know. All right, that is all for me today, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.